Welcome back to another episode of the Courageous Ambassador podcast. I'm your host, Danny Garcia, the campus pastor here at Grace Christian University. Today we had two special guests, Pastor Bill Rigg. We talked about his backstory here at Grace, just the different ministries that he was involved in, the stories of grief and loss in ministry and how he impacted people's life. Our other guest was Professor Rodgers, who was personally impacted and has a close relationship with Bill as well. So what got you into ministry is first question. It's a good opener, right?
Yeah. I'm from South Chicago. That's what we called home. And my mother, who was a pretty good poker player, started to attend a Bible study. She was coming back to Christ, and she didn't even know it. But she had run away from the church when she was a kid, kind of a rebellious 17-year-old in Indiana. But anyhow, I came along pretty late in their life. And I was 15 years old. My mom, who had started attending this Bible study, needed a ride. And because both my parents were handicapped, I had a chance to take her to this Bible study. And instead of waiting in the car, she invited me to wait in the kitchen. She knew I wouldn't be at that stage of my life. It was cars, girls, and sports, not necessarily in that order. But in any case, 15, you're a sophomore. Yeah. I was a big kid, athletic, energetic. So I waited in the kitchen. Didn't realize the unusual relationships that exist between Christianity and the coffee industry, because after the mumbo jumbo and the Bible business in the other room, everybody comes into the kitchen, and the last guy literally rolled into the kitchen. His name was Raymond Erd, severely disabled with cerebral palsy, I found out later. But nevertheless, the conversation that night was, how's Ray going to get to camp up in Michigan? And the shorter story is that I got volunteered, I got paid for, and a couple of months later, in 1954, I took Ray Erd up to Grace Youth Camp, and little did I know that that was the method that God was using to bring me to himself. Mm-hmm. So I consider Grace Youth Camp, now Grace Adventures, but at that time, meeting up at Portage Lake Bible Camp. That's what I consider my birthplace.
Okay. What year was that when you went to Grace Adventures, or Grace Youth Camp for the first time?
The first time, 1954.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when was that in relationship to when they built the camp up?
Well, that was the only year I was a camper. And then the following 2 or 3 years, still met up there. Mm-hmm. Then we moved to Camp Blodgett, rented that. Mm-hmm. And then there were 6 of us that went up to the place where the camp is right now at Upper Silver. We stood on the edge of a ravine that was going to become a lake. And there the land was given to us by the Veltings.
Wow. And
the bulldozers showed up the following week, and they asked if we wanted to accept this as camp, and it took about 2 seconds worth of prayer to get that answered. And we said yes, 1,000 feet of frontage on a ravine that by the following year was a camp. So yeah. So I'm one of the, I guess they would call it a founder.
Oh yeah.
Of the camp. All the other guys are dead now, so I'm still hanging around.
Yeah. So what was your relationship or title at that point? In regards,
I was on the camp board, and I was program director.
Okay.
And that was in the let's see, that would have been about, the camp started in around 65, 66.
Okay.
And then I was working here
at
the same time at the college.
Oh, at the same time. So what were you doing?
I was, if all my jobs were end to end, I'd be 160 years old. I was field representative for a while. Then I was dean of students for a while. I did some teaching here and there. You wear a lot of hats in a small school. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. And then I traveled the country with President Baker after he retired, because he had never had the chance to get around and visit all the Grace churches. So we did that together, a real odd couple. But he was like a spiritual father to me.
Wow. I never met President Baker.
Right.
What's your best memory of President Baker?
how do you, it's hard to put that in a capsule. But he was a man of great learning and of great humility. I would say more than anything else, his humble approach to just about any subject or topic was just wonderful to sit under his leading, his teaching. And eventually I did come to school in Milwaukee and was under his teaching during my 4 years at Milwaukee Bible College.
Because coming from an outside perspective, like I didn't grow up in Grace circles at all, but then I came here, and President Baker, to myself, seems like someone like just a legend, like that I've just, like I have no relation to him. What is a memory that you've had with him and like in his mentorship and leadership that just like pops up, that personifies to this man, that is like this is what showcases his character?
I have to circle back to his humble approach to biblical studies, theology, medicine, science. He was one of the first people in the country to have a ham radio license. I grew up in Dallas, went to Schofield's church. Louis Sperry Chafer was one of his instructors at Dallas. So he was well educated, went to Wheaton College also. But I didn't know him or know who he was really until I went up to Milwaukee myself to go to the college. That's where I met the Bakers.
Yeah.
So you adopted my family as your own family back in the 90s.
Yeah.
So you're probably the only reason that I'm here at Grace Christian University teaching is because my family would have been lost without your intervention in my mom's life and my dad's life to lead them to Christ. They led us to Christ. We went up to Grace Adventures. We were campers there. Yeah. We were staff there. My brother and I, and then I went off to college to go get a degree in biblical studies. Like, what are some other connections that you have with people that you've made an impact in their life, and you've seen a direction that they've gone that you never saw coming?
Well, I should mention also that this is our 50th year of doing SALT Ministries, which is a ministry that we started out as a 501c3 in the state of Michigan. Nancy and I, after I left Grace Adventures as the executive director, what to do. I wasn't as well qualified for that executive position. I liked working with the kids and doing that kind of thing, more preaching, teaching, that kind of stuff. And so for a year of severance, I was able to cover a lot of different ground. But Nancy and I, who was a wonderful pianist, and we were together for 65 years before she died 3 years ago, and we did lots of music together, lots of concert work. And SALT Ministries became viable because the doors were open for us to be. I've been an interim pastor at 16 different churches over the years. The youth work and all of this stuff is in the same pot. It's hard for me to speak institutionally because in a lot of these relationships that I had, it was with persons rather than with groups. For instance, Dr. Ed Erickson, who became my very best friend, I met at camp when we were both 15. He became Dr. Erickson, head of the English department at Calvin. Was friends of the Solzhenitsyn family, the spokesperson for Alexander Solzhenitsyn in this country. And we traveled to Russia together, the Soviet Union. I was in touch with Dave Noble over the years, who was with Summit Ministries in Colorado. But again, a lot of these were unofficial and informal, not formalized relationships, but all part of what I was learning in terms of ministry and ministering beyond, I would say, the purview of the grace movement itself. But still, part of that, that's where my ordination is since 1961.
Yeah, you see, so you have webbed your way through a lot of connections with people that are, have done great work, right?
My mother didn't think I could hold a job, Dan.
And look at you now, doing salt ministry.
Unretired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
continuing to work. We were talking beforehand that on your card you have Bill Rigg's a pastor, right?
Yeah,
And so that's your heart. That's what you're doing.
With some numbers, yeah.
Yeah.
And to circle back to what Jake said, when I met Jakey after, of course, meeting his mother, what a meeting that was. And soon after that meeting, she decided not to pull the plug on her life, but rather to receive life from Christ. And then I got involved in her story with the kids. At the time I met Jakey, he was a little cross-eyed boy going over to the University of Michigan, literally, to have his eyes fixed, serviced over at the university. And then, of course, got to know his brother, got to know Scotty eventually, and absolutely, as much as you can adopt a family without the paperwork, that's the connection that we have.
Yeah.
You, not only were you an instrumental part of my growing up, but also your son and your grandson, Luther. And I remember as a kid going in downtown Grand Rapids and serving with you guys at God's Garage. Can you talk about that time a little bit?
That was, Kevin went through a lot of grieving after his brother Jimmy was killed in 1976, and had a few wild years and ended up befriending a lot of children, orphans, and criminals, prisoners. That became kind of his ministry, still is, along with Bible teaching and other things that he does in that realm. But part of it was the acquisition of God's Garage, which is an old truck warehouse downtown. And he just opened a youth center. Kids started to come, and it became quite a place down there, the old Kriegel bookstore.
Oh, yeah.
And its environs. But then, instead of moving to the city, he moved up north and invited the kids from the city up there. Mm-hmm. And so now that's a part of Salt Ministries, which is called Up and Out. Mm-hmm. And he's been doing that for many years. And his kids, his daughters mainly, are running the show up there with 30-some horses and indoor riding arena. He's got all kinds of things going. Church on Sunday mornings, and his kitchen, of all things. And Luther, who you mentioned, is married to a doctor in Fremont and perpetuating the Rigg ancestry as we speak. He just told me last week there's one on the way in July, and it's a boy.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome. Yeah,
in any case, yep.
You've experienced a lot of loss of life in your time, and your wife being the most recent, but also your granddaughter and your son. And you talked about Psalm 88. What is your advice for those grieving lost ones? My dad died in 2011 to cancer, and I still think about him every day when I have to think about
That's right.
doing car work, or I ate at a great restaurant, and all of a sudden all the memories come flooding back to the things I want to tell my dad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jesus didn't reach up and try to get the thorns off his head. They were stuck there as part of the way he would die. He didn't necessarily embrace the thorns, but they were certainly a part of his life. And to embrace grief, if you know what the final chapter is embraces hope at the same time. To know that it's not the last chapter, Jimmy, when he died at 15, he died suddenly, and he knew definitely where he was going, and so I think of him. I visit his gravesite, and I sometimes laugh my head off, and sometimes I lay down on top of it, and sometimes I just cry, and I call that healthy grieving. And I think that's an important thing to do. Jesus was a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. How do you get acquainted with grief? It's something you want to push aside. I've spent many days recently with Dale Day at his side, holding his hands, singing to him. Because at 9 years old, after a campfire at camp, he came to the Lord in 1971. He was my spiritual son. What a great man of God. What a privilege it was to be a part of his life, and to realize that his father-in-law, Joe DiVelasco, was my counselor at camp in 1954.
Wow.
So I'm connected to that family. All of these interconnections, you can certainly see almost visually what the body of Christ is really all about.
Yeah.
It's more literal than figurative. It truly is. Because we have bodies, because we live our lives out on this earth, and those bodies are gonna experience what bodies experience, and so those have been terribly dark days, certainly to start with. Kevin was with me when he got the news that his daughter, 29, Olivia, was killed. He happened to be at my house when the news came, and he shuddered. And I understand what shuddering is, and holding him as he heard the news that his daughter had been killed up in Traverse City. But it's going to happen, you know.
When I hear stories of loss and struggle, because I've been in rooms and in situations with people who've gone through those situations. I haven't had the time yet to experience such things, and just occasionally more suffering than grief. But I always find it interesting how when people go through those situations, God uses it and them in such ways that it blesses the body and impacts people in very odd, opportune ways. I'm curious, with your experience with such grief, how has God used that to shape your life and to shape others' lives to grow deeper in relationship with Him?
Because the whole message that we're responsible for believing and spreading is a message of life and death. That's what it deals with. This isn't about gumdrops and cotton candy. You know, this is real stuff. And if the theology doesn't resonate with the life, there's either something wrong with your life or something wrong with your theology, because those things need to come together. If your theology doesn't minister to your life and your life doesn't live out your theology, what have you got? You got something that's insufficient. And so I don't think that's complicated in the sense of hard to understand. That's why I love being with little kids. I love the depth of their innocence.
Yeah.
You know, they're not putting that on. That's who they are.
Yep.
You know, and if they bite you, they must have been motivated to do that somehow.
It's real. It's like it's authentic. They're playing games, but they're not playing games in life. Like it's
there
just,
you go.
It's real. It's real. It's
That's
there.
right. That's right.
This is a bit of a selfish question. My dad in 2001 was diagnosed with cancer, and you had known him before he came to the Lord, after he came to the Lord, but it wasn't until 2001 that his life turned around and changed. I think of his presence in my life as a son was very limited prior to 2001. Even though he had come to the Lord, he had put his faith in God. It wasn't until he had that moment where cancer was about to take his life in 3 to 5 weeks or 3 to 6 months, that he dedicated his life to learning more about God and serving others. I just want to know, from your perspective, what did you see during that time period in him?
Well, when I first heard about your dad, I didn't like him very much, from what your mom told me. And then she kept telling me more about him, and I liked him even less. And so I hadn't met him, but I advised your mom to think twice about sticking around with him. And she was, God bless her, she said he's a good dad, bad husband, good dad, and that was the truth. And we talked through that stuff, and finally the day came, because she came to Christ, that her life and her words made the difference in his. He was a playboy. You know, Scotty he was a fun guy. When I finally got to know him, and the quirkiness and all the kind of stuff, as kind of a wild and quirky bus driver, you know, but he had a lot more depth than that, and there was a lot more going on in his life than what you can see on the surface. And I think the stuff eventually, and I think your mom got through to him on a level that God used to bring him to himself. He was a wandering sheep, and he was wandering in pastures that were kind of happy, but not the pastures he needed to be in. And God plucked him out of there and brought him home. You talk about the guy that needed to come home. Man, he did. And when he did, it was just a joy to be with your papa. And I have great memories of him, Jake. And when I mentioned before your resemblance, it's striking, even more so. But try to stay away from a XXX size coat, okay?
We'll try that.
All right, all right. He's a big man. Yeah. He's a big man. I got some of his clothes later on, but yeah, what a family. Yeah. God bless you.
I'm gonna pause for a second.
Yeah.
Can your mic turned in? I want you to turn it out just a little bit further.
Sure.
Just want to make sure. Yeah, there we go. That's perfect. Okay. All right.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
I would love to hear the story of Jake's mom and the connection and how Bill got involved with that and that whole, because I think that's a really interesting story.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to transition to this. So following up on that, well, can you expound a little bit more on how you got connected with Jake's mom and what led to the sort of like relationship that has developed? And of course, like, you guys are close now, but it had to have started somewhere and have continued in such a way that that it has impacted you guys significantly. So can you kind of expound a little bit on that?
Sure. In the early 90s, I got a call from a gal who worked at a large company north of here, and she said that her supervisor had confided in her that she intended to take her life the next day. And she was calling me because I was her youth pastor at one time in Muskegon. Would I be willing to meet with her, her being Dawn? And so I said sure. And some of my meetings at that time were being held at the Big Boy restaurant in downtown Grand Rapids, Pearl Street Big Boy. Everybody knew where it was. So I think it was the following day or so that she agreed to do that. And in comes Dawn, smiley, not very talkative, but smiley. We talked. And eventually, in that conversation, I was able to buy some time with her. She's gonna wait, not pull the plug quite yet. Let's talk again. And we talked again and again and again. And finally, the Spirit moved in her life, and she came to Christ. That's the simple part of the story.
Yep.
The details that I'm not going to discuss that had motivated her to do what she intended to do were nasty, and they were ugly, and I can see how she was evaluating this. But she herself had abuse in her life, and there was another girl about her age at the same time in the early 90s, named Margaret, who had many of the same issues. I was counseling with both of them at the time. And as a result of our relationship in their coming to the Lord, both of them asked if Nancy and I would become their parents, so to speak. Okay. And we agreed with both of them, and we're still in touch. They both. I just got a card from Margaret the other day, who decided to live instead of die.
Yeah. Wow.
And Dawn, same thing. And so I got two daughters that call me Papa and called Nancy Mama. And what a joy it's been and being in camp work with all these kids and so on. It's kind of a wide circle of people that refer to me that way. Yeah. I answer my phone oftentimes, "This is Grandpa," and I'm usually right. There's somebody on the other end that's,
Yeah.
So that's kind of the story of how Dawn came into my life and I came into hers. God used that through the work of a gal who had been a junior in high school when I was her youth pastor back in Muskegon, one of the 16 interims along the way. So it's all connected. The dots do connect.
Yeah. We got another question off camera.
Can you speak about how you saw your mom's salvation and change, and what kind of impact that was? How old were you at that point?
In my mom?
For Jake. So, Jake, how did you see that?
I was this big.
I
don't remember very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but there must be some like you already spoke to it a little bit, but like the connection point that was made between Bill and your mom led to you in some way finding the Lord, right? Changes, development.
Honestly, the relationship that I've had with Bill has often been with his kids. So his kids and his grandkids. And,
that's right.
Luther and I grew up, and when we didn't even go to school together. I would get off the bus at Park Elementary School. I was at Hudsonville, so I'd stop at a Jenison school. I'd get off the bus, I'd walk down the street, and I'd go over to Luther's house, and we'd hang out for the rest of the day. Okay. And his mom, Melanie, would teach me the Bible. We'd read scripture together. She was my babysitter and my other mom. And so when you had talked about earlier the body of Christ being the family of God, more literally than it is figuratively, that's how I learned what family was.
That's right.
Family was less for me about the people I was related to by blood, and it was the people I was related to because they were part of the body of Christ and had welcomed me into their homes.
Because of his blood.
Because of his blood.
That's right.
So I to this day, I have very few familial relationships that are by blood that I'm very close with. The people I'm the closest with are the ones that I have spent my life living with and among in the body of Christ, and that is because of your son Kevin and your grandson Luther and your daughter-in-law Melanie and the work that they put into my life. And so that's why I even asked questions about Kevin and what he'd been up to.
Yep.
And I think that legacy that you demonstrated in the faithfulness that you had towards your family and towards the family that you created for yourself, right, has impacted me, impacted the way that I work with students. I think that you're dealing with issues regarding life and death in all of the relationships that you deal with, right? Not just figuratively about when we think about what happens to us when we die, right? Whether we go to the Lord or whether we're eternally separated, but also just whether or not we meet the Lord sooner than we had planned. And students today in church, at school, deal with feelings of inadequacy, self-doubt, whether or not they should take their life or whether they should continue to live to the next day. And I've had opportunities to work with students in in that vein, and I don't think had it been for you and your ministry towards my mom, and the faithfulness of your son and his family towards me and my brother, I would have even had the context for working with people that were going through a similar situation as my mom. Even though I was too young, I was like 4 years old when you had met my mom for the first time.
Yeah.
And yet I've had the opportunity to have little brothers and sisters that have grown up here at Grace and have come through.
Yeah.
And I get to minister in their life and walk them through those times of darkness. And I will continue to have those opportunities and those
That's right.
moments for relationship.
It is, and we share in that legacy, Jake, and I rejoice in that sharing. Generational legacy is an important way to look at how you've lived your life. That's why I don't want to retire. What does that mean?
Yeah.
How can you retire from family?
The priests in the Old Testament, I think, they had to give it up at around 50, but they couldn't throw the ox on the altar anymore. But they were around as consultants, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So what does it look like to not retire?
Okay, every day I wake up just like you do, and I have things to do, places to go, and people to see. And the date book at the beginning of the week sometimes is empty, but by the end of the week it's filled up pretty well. Calls come in for different things, and if I can do it personally, okay. If somebody else can do it better, that's even better. I'm really good. I give the gift of delegation. I really know how to. It almost looks like I'm lazy sometimes. I probably am, but. In any case, to keep the ministry moving in that direction, and that's again part of the whole concept of SALT, as I understand it. Yeah.
This is a little off topic, but I've always heard that, and I resonate with this because I can be this way. I always heard that lazy people are great innovators because they don't want to do the job, but they'll find people to get the job done.
There you go.
So I think that's it's a good leadership quality that you can try to spin out. But
That's right. There are linear people and there are circular people. Linear people are the list makers of life. They're the ones that keep on that path. I'm not a linear person. A circular person is somebody on their agenda. If they come to something that they can't answer, they don't know it, they just keep moving and they come back to it. So I've been going in circles my whole life, but I had a good linear wife.
Oh, yeah.
It was a good combination.
Yes, yeah. Is there anything in regards to ministry as a whole, what we've talked about so far, that you would like to share with us, just talking with listeners that may hear, that it would empower people to do the work of Christ and empower people to be diligent in their faith?
Yeah, there's plenty of opportunity, and you just decide. I think deciding to serve the Lord is a objective decision that you make, and you can do it in the terms of your personality. There's a difference between the gifts of the Spirit and the fruit of the Spirit. Everybody can demonstrate the fruit of the Spirit. That's for sure. And if you do, the gifts will show up. The specialties, that God has given to us and endorsed. And again, I think in ministry, a lot of times what I do is I set the table. And whether people sit down and partake or not, that's going to be up to them and the Lord. I don't try to talk people into things. I try to create a climate where they can make the important choices of life, whether they're life choices, vocational choices, educational, whatever, that they can do that. And if I meet myself in the Bible, the guy that I connect with more than anybody else is Barnabas. I understand he was big, he was a priest, and of course, even the Leviticals had a bunch of armed priests in the old days. They didn't screw around. Those guys were guys that could fight. And so the good fight of faith is a good thing, but whether it's in a particular realm of ministry, a specialty, or simply to serve the Lord at large, which is more the category that I'm in, it's just a case of doing it. And your prayer life becomes putting the Lord between you and the stuff instead of the circumstances between you and the Lord, and trying to live that kind of a life of prayer. And incidentally, Psalm 88 is a prayer. It's a nasty prayer. Love it. But in any case, that's I think how God accomplishes what He's going to accomplish through us. Amazing, that that we're not only fellow heirs, but we're fellow workers.
I feel like I've only scratched the surface of the stuff that we can talk about and just the work that you've done. I would love to have both of you back and for us to continue this conversation. But I think that's also the best way to end this episode, to inspire people to do the work of Christ and be engaged in their faith, be moved to be able to respond. So thank you so much, Bill, for being here. Thank you, Professor Rodgers. Yeah, thank you guys so much.
My privilege. My privilege to be, over many, many years, a part of this place of Grace Christian University. And I thank God for the roots that were, and the seeds that were planted and the roots that developed as a result of my time here in the old days. So I'm a grateful, thankful man.
Yeah, and we're thankful for you and the work that you've done through so many people. And if you're listening, you've heard us talk about Psalm 88 a few times. This I think is a great challenge for you, or inspiration, to go check out that verse and pray it and study it and see how this could impact your life in a deep, deep way. So thank you guys. Thank you so much.